Hello everyone. I didn't think I'd be able to write a biography of myself because as I got older my short-term memory is virtually non-existent, and I've never kept a diary or been one for hoarding papers, so I've been surprised that I've been able to finish it. I've been able to write it by something triggering a memory, and from that memory, once I've got into it, one memory has led to another, and hopefully I've made the biography interesting, well, at least to my immediate family anyway, and me of course. I've called this excerpt "Don't Judge a Book by Its Cover." I was at a meeting recently where one of the members was given a short talk on quotations, of which that was one. And then on the television I watched a program a few days ago where they were talking about how there'd been a lot of antagonism or discrimination against Jews in England for some time, over a long period, and I know that's true because when my parents moved to Leeds when I was about 16 or 17, the second house they got was a new house opposite a golf course and club on the outskirts of Leeds, and it was known as the Jewish Golf Club. And it was said that they'd had to create their own golf club for their own religion because other clubs wouldn't accept Jews as members, so it has happened. Well, this little story I'm going to tell you is about a Jew. I've mentioned, I think, in my first extract that I worked at the Bradford Equitable Building Society in Albion Place in Leeds. That was down some steps. The office was down some outside steps, and the office itself was fairly small. There were only 4 of the staff. There was the manager, Mr. Langdale, and a young married woman called Joan, and another girl of my age called Marguerite, who, like me, well, she was a cashier, and also I was a cashier bookkeeper, and she was a cashier shorthand typist. So between us, Marguerite and me, we attended to all the customers who came in the office, and because we had to go to lunch, sometimes we could be in the office by ourselves on a lunchtime, and I mean, there was no security screens or anything like burglar alarms or anything like that in those days, because life was different in those days. And anyhow, we had this one customer he was a fairly elderly Jewish gentleman, and he was a short man. The counters were two-tiered in the office, so the cashiers could sit at what appeared to be an ordinary table-sized desk, and the customers were able to stand and lean on the higher counter at their side. Well, when this old Jewish gentleman, we were a bit frightened of him, to tell you the truth. I mean, we were only young, because he never spoke, and only in guttural tones, and with him being short, and he had his face was rather disfigured, we always thought, and he had this large hook nose, and when he used to come and stand at the counter, his nose was only just, the bottom of his nose was only just on the level with the top of the counter, and unfortunately he had a club foot that he used to drag behind him, so when the door used to open and he used to come across with this very severe expression on his face and his general appearance and demeanour, certainly Marguerite, when she was in the office on her own, she was always a little bit panicky because none of us knew what to make of this man, you see. Well, he used to come and pay money in and plonk a pile of dirty old 10-bob notes, pound notes and coins on the counter for us to count out and put to the credit of his account. Whenever he used to withdraw money, he always came in and demanded £5 notes. Well, these were the great big £5 notes that, I don't know how, I can't remember now how big they were, probably half the size of a sheet of A4. And there were very, very few of those about, actually. Anyway, this particular day, as cashiers, we had to balance the cash to the receipts in the counter ledger every night. And this particular night, Marguerite was, I can't remember, it was £10 or £20 out. And well, I mean, in those days we were only earning less than £5 a week for a 5.5-day week. And Marguerite, on this particular night, she was £10 out, and so the four of us spent a lot of time after we closed trying to find out why or how she'd come to be this money missing, because we were like bus conductors. If the cash was wrong, we had to make it up out of our own salaries. If it was over, it went into a special account. We didn't get anything that was over. We just had to make up any shortages of cash. So this £10, I mean, it was a very large sum for Marguerite to have to make up. So we spent a long time trying to find out why. We used to keep a record of the cash. We used to have pound notes separate, counted 10 shillings, £5, and the silver and brass coinage. So we could start off and go through each receipt and withdrawal and kind of get an idea where the mistake had been made. And we came to the conclusion that night that it was this old Jew. He'd been in when Marguerite was on her own at lunchtime and withdrawn some money. Well, as I said, he always asked for £5 notes when he withdrew money. Well, at that time, please don't think I'm being nasty to the Jews, but I mean, at that time there was a saying in Leeds, which had a very big Jewish population at that time, and probably still has, that Jews never counted the last note. You know, if you give them money, they'd go through it, but they'd never flick up the last one because there might be two. It's not funny, but I mean, this it's kind of a racial or religious joke, or would be thought so today anyway. And so of course we decided that the only person that who could possibly, Marguerite could possibly have overpaid, was this old Jewish gentleman. Well, we're all there very early next morning to console one another, because the Jews had the reputation of being mean and very careful with money, and we never expected to see the money again. And anyway, so poor Marguerite was in tears, but there we are. Anyway, dead on 9 o'clock, the door opened, and in walked this old Jewish man. He dragged his foot across the room to the counter and banged the two £5 notes down on the desk. Zoo gave too much. He didn't seem to be able to speak proper English, you know, he was a foreigner really. And anyhow, Marguerite was almost over the counter to kiss him. She was so relieved and so pleased, and as we all were. And of course, that incident got us talking to this Jewish gentleman, and this is why I've called this little excerpt "Don't Judge a Book by Its Cover," because once we got to know him and he started talking to us, we discovered that he was the treasurer of a charity to help ex-concentration camp victims who had come across to England or been brought across to help them survive. And the money he paid in was money he'd collected for the charity, and when he came out, and for some reason I expect it was easier for him and for the persons that he was giving the money to give them whatever he wanted to give them in £5 notes. And so of course when we learnt all this, we all felt dreadful actually, that we'd thought bad things about him. And he turned out to be a lovely man, very, very kind, hard-working, in spite of his disabilities, generous Jew, and we only had the kindest and most heartfelt things to say about him after that. So there you are. That's just a little story of don't judge a book by its cover. Thank you for listening.